Hey there, and welcome to this complete walkthrough of Chompi and its Tape 2.0 firmware. Okay, so here's the idea. The manual for Chompi is structured like a video game, with 9 levels, starting at 0 going to 8, that gradually build up your understanding of how Chompi works. I've taken those levels and broken them down into 100 little objectives that are going to help us to unpack all of the main features of Chompi. And in this video, we're going to walk through them one by one, looking at what they are, how to use them, and what we can do with them, while making some music along the way. So first of all, what is Chompi? For those who don't know, Chompi is basically a chromatic sampler with a built-in microphone, a tape-style variable speed looper, multi-effects engine, and a built-in rechargeable battery. On the front of Chompi, we have a 2-octave keyboard with white keys and black keys, and then we have just one row of keys, knobs, and other stuff up here, and that's pretty much it in terms of controls. We'll go through what each of them does as the video goes. All right, now on the left side, we have 3.5mm MIDI in and out jacks. On the right side, we have 3.5mm headphone and line in jacks. And on the back side, we have a 3.5mm master out, a mini SD slot, a handle with a cute little Chompi face hiding underneath it, a power switch, and a USB-C power port / MIDI port. All right, now I'm actually going to plug in my audio interface into the headphone jack, just so you can hear exactly what I'm hearing through my headphones. And I'm going to plug into power just so I don't have to worry about that. So now I just have to flick the power switch on. And we're going to get a pretty little light show while Chompi checks the SD card and boots up. And when it's finished, we are good to go. Okay, first things first. This switch right here is called the mode switch, and it just goes up and down. The up position is for when we want to record a sample. This is called Chompi Mode, and the down position is for when we want to play or edit our samples. Now, by default, in the down position, we immediately enter something called Jammi Mode. And Jammi Mode is basically for taking a single sample and playing it chromatically on the keyboard. And right now, because I haven't recorded a sample and I haven't selected any presets or any samples I've saved, the sound that we're going to hear is the default sine wave sound. And the keyboard is going to work just like any normal keyboard instrument. Chromatically, with up to 7 voices of polyphony. Okay, so that's the basics of Jammi Mode. Now let's go back over to Chompi Mode. And you'll notice that immediately my voice sounds different, and that is because when there is nothing plugged into the line-in jack, and we're in Chompi Mode, the built-in microphone is the default recording source, and if we're plugged into headphones, we hear the audio being monitored by the microphone. So I am literally right here, and you're currently hearing my voice both through my studio microphone and Chompi's microphone. All right, now recording a sample is very simple. This pink key right here is called the Chompi key, and when we're in Chompi Mode, the Chompi key functions as a recording button. By default, you push it down to record, a red light goes on, and then you lift up to stop recording. And that's it. The sample is now in a temporary buffer memory, and I can play it chromatically on the keyboard. Red light goes on, red light goes on, red light goes on, and then you record. And because we're still in Chompi Mode, you can actually hear me press down the keys when I play the sample. Record. But the moment we exit Chompi Mode and go back to Jammi Mode, the monitoring stops. And you no longer hear them. All right, so let's do that one more time, this time with a real instrument. So mode switch up, get ready to record by pressing down the Chompi button. And lift up to stop recording. And then while I'm still in Chompi Mode, let's make sure that was okay. I think that'll work. So back to Jammi Mode, and now we can play it without monitoring our audio. I'm happy with that. Let's keep going. All right, moving over to the right. The first knob on the left is called the sample staging knob. And this does a few different things, but right now it controls the root pitch and playback direction of our sample. So the root pitch is whatever we hear when we press this middle C key, which is white key number 8. By default, this is the same pitch as our original sample, but if we turn this knob clockwise, we move the pitch up, and if we move it counterclockwise, we move it down. And then all the other keys are tuned in relation to this middle one. Which is why we call it the root pitch. Now, if we keep going down in pitch, so counterclockwise, we get to some really low territory. And then if we keep going counterclockwise, the sample starts getting played back in reverse, and the pitch starts going up. And then if at any time I want to reset the pitch to its original pitch, what I need to do is press and hold the Chompi key, which functions as a shift key in Jammi Mode. So hold that down and then press down the knob. You get a little click, and now if I play on the keyboard, we've reset both the pitch and the playback direction to the original. All right, so that's shifting our pitch up and down continuously. But we can also shift it up and down in leaps of fifths or octaves by holding down the Chompi key while we turn the knob. And we can also move into the reverse playback portion of the knob's range that way as well. Okay, so I'm going to reset our pitch. And now let's look at the other thing that this knob can do. Because this knob has a whole nother set of things that it can control, and to access them, we simply have to press the knob down. The light above the knob changes to red. Now, if I just turn the knob clockwise or counterclockwise, it will make my sample louder or quieter. And if I hold down the shift key and turn the knob, I can pan the sample to the right or to the left. And then if I want to reset both the volume and the panning, I hold down the shift key, press down the knob, and I'm back to the default setting. And then if I want the knob to go back to controlling the root pitch and playback direction of the sample, I just press it down, the light turns green, and then we're back to the knob controlling those settings. All right, now what I just showed you with this knob is emblematic of how all of the knobs work on Chompi. Each knob has 2 or 3 pages of functions that it controls. So for this knob, the first page is the one we started on, where the knob controls the pitch and playback direction. And then we have page 2, which we flick to by pressing down the knob, which controls the volume and the panning. The color of the light above the knob indicates which page we're on. So page 1 is green and page 2 is red. So page 1, page 2, page 1, page 2, page 1. All right, the next 2 knobs are the sample envelope knobs. And just like the first knob, they have 2 pages. By default, we're on page 1. And if we press down on the knobs, we're on page 2, and although these 2 knobs come as a pair, we can flip between pages independently. Okay, now on page 1, these knobs control our sample window. The knob on the left controls the start point of the sample, and the knob on the right controls the end point of the sample. And turning the start point knob to the right will move the start point to the right. Turning it to the left will move it to the left, and same thing with the end point. It can move that to the left or move it to the right. Now, with our current sample, we have a very distinctive attack portion of our sound and a tail of our sound. We have the initial pluck And then we have the string continuing to reverberate and fade away. So if we nudge our start point just a little bit to the right, we'll start to lose that sharp attack. It now sounds much quieter, so I'm going to go use the sample staging knob to turn the volume up a bit. And now our sample no longer really sounds like a ukulele. Let's reset the volume here and bring our start point back to the beginning. Another thing we could do here is eliminate that long tail of our sample and make it much shorter by bringing the endpoint over to the left. And as you can hear, we can make it very short. I'm going to nudge it a bit over to the right. And now if I go back over to the playback direction and pitch knob and bring that into reverse territory, now our sample is going to play much more quickly than it did before, since the endpoint is now much closer to the starting point. And when we reverse the sample, the endpoint and start point effectively switch places, and the endpoint becomes the start point, and the start point becomes the endpoint. All right, let's reset our playback direction. And then one last thing we can do with these two knobs on page 1 is if we hold down the shift key and turn either of the knobs, what it's going to do is it's going to move both the start point and the end point at the same time in the same direction. And so if we move it to the right, for example, we're essentially taking our little shortened sample window and scooching the entire window over to the right instead of just one of the points. So for example, right now with that short attack, I can take this whole thing and move it to the right to have just a small little snippet of the tail section of the sample. Let's turn up the volume. And then just to give you a more practical example, I'm going to choose a preset. So with this drum sample, we could move our endpoint all the way to the left to isolate just that small section, and then we could hold down the Chompi key to scooch the window over to another small section. And we could try making it even shorter. Scooch that around. And so you can find all sorts of cool little hidden micro loops inside of your sample this way. And then once you find one, you can experiment with changing the pitch and playback direction. And do lots of fun stuff that way as well. Okay, now let's flip both of these knobs to page 2. And on page 2, the knob on the left controls our attack, and the knob on the right controls our decay. And going clockwise with either of these knobs will increase the attack or decay, and going counterclockwise will decrease the attack and decay. By default, there is 0 attack or decay. Let me show you this with another sample. Okay, so this has no attack and no decay at the moment. So the sample instantaneously goes to full volume when I press down a key, and then it instantaneously disappears when I let go of the key. If we increase the attack, the sound will fade in. And if we increase the decay, it will continue to ring out after I let go of the key. Okay, I want to put these back into their initial position now. No attack, no decay. And the last thing to show you here is that if we hold down the shift key and turn either of the knobs, Chompi will increase or decrease both the attack and the decay simultaneously. But if I want to go back to the original attack and decay settings, all I have to do is press and hold the Chompi key and turn the left knob counterclockwise. Okay, and that does it for those two knobs. Now let's look at the next knob. So this is the multi-effects knob. It has 3 pages. Page 1 is blue, the default page. Page 2 is yellow. Page 3 is pink. And then we get back to page 1. Page 1 is Chompi's signature magic wand effect, which is basically a combination of a delay and a reverb. This effect, like all the effects, are turned off by default, but if we turn the knob clockwise, we increase the amount of the effect, which can really transform our sound. And we can increase this even more. And I'm just going to start talking because this thing goes on and on and on. So you have a really large range of reverb and delay to work with here. And then if we turn the knob counterclockwise, we decrease the amount of the effect. But I'm going to bring it up just a little bit here. To show you the next thing, which is that if we hold down the Shift key and then turn the knob clockwise, we will increase the delay time. And then if we hold down the Shift key while going counterclockwise, we will decrease the delay time. Getting into some slapback territory there. Let's bring it up a little bit. And then if we want to reset the effect, we hold down the Shift key and press down on the knob. And now we're back to the dry original sample. All right, so now let's flip to page 2 by pressing down on the knob without holding down the Chompi key. And page 2 of this knob controls a tape effect. The primary thing it controls, so what it controls when I just turn the knob right or left without holding down the Chompi key, is the amount of tape saturation. So this is off by default, but if I bring it up, we get more and more saturation, so that's clockwise. And then if we go counterclockwise, we decrease the amount of saturation. And then the secondary parameter or control or function of this knob, so what happens when we hold down the Chompi key and turn the knob, is that we increase or decrease the amount of tape modulation. I'm going to bring that up. And now you can hear some tape warble. And we can combine that with our tape saturation. And if we go back to the Magic Wand page, we can also bring some delay and reverb in. So you can combine all of the effects together, and when you reset the effects by holding the Chompi key down and pressing down the knob, it resets all of them at once. Okay, so that was page 2. Now let's go on to page 3. This is the final page, and this is a multi-mode filter. If we go clockwise with the knob, we get a high-pass filter, and if we go counterclockwise, we get a low-pass filter. And then the secondary parameter on this page, so holding down the Shift key and turning the knob clockwise, is going to increase the resonance on our filter. Now that's a bit hard to hear in and of itself, but now if we go back and let go of the Shift key and turn our knob to change the filter, we get a filter sweep. Okay, now we get to what I think of as the heart and soul of Chompi, at least in its current firmware, which largely evolves around this variable speed tape style looper, controlled by these two keys and the big purple wheel right here. Okay, so to start recording, I press the yellow key down, the light turns red to indicate it's recording. And then if I press the yellow key again, the loop gets closed and we enter into overdubbing mode, where I can start recording additional layers of sound on top of what I've already recorded. So since I was talking the whole time, I'm going to redo this. Okay, so I'm going to get in position here and press the yellow key to start recording. Close the loop, enter overdub, and now I can start recording additional notes on top of that. Notice how the blue light starts to fade away as we get to the end of the loop. And then it goes bright when we get back to the beginning, which can really help with timing things. If I want to exit overdub, I press the blue key, the loop will continue playing, and now I can start playing notes on top of this without recording them to the loop, which can be great for performing or for rehearsing or improvising parts before committing them to the looper. If I want to re-enter overdub, I press the yellow key, waiting for that blue light to go blue. Exit overdub. And then if I want to pause the loop, I press the blue key again. And the tape stops. All right, and then if I want to start playing my loop again, I can either press the blue key to start playing without overdubbing, press it again to pause, or I can press the yellow key to immediately go into overdub. Okay, there's a couple more technical sides to these keys, which we'll come back to in a moment, but first let's move over to the big purple wheel, officially known as the transport knob. When we have a loop and it's paused, this allows us to scrub through our loop forwards or backwards. And then when our loop is playing, going clockwise will speed it up. And going counterclockwise will slow it down. And if we keep going, it almost comes to a standstill. And if we continue going counterclockwise, it'll start going in reverse, faster and faster, higher pitch and higher pitch. Until we end up going a whole octave higher in reverse. And then at any time, whether the loop is paused or playing, if we want to reset everything, we just press down on the transport knob. So once again, slow down, and reset. And then one other thing we can do is if we hold down the Chompi key while turning the knob, it will speed up and slow down in leaps of fifths and octaves in terms of the pitch change that the speed causes. So let me show you that. I pause and then restart the loop, it's going to be at whatever speed and playback direction I left it, unless I reset it, and I can start overdubbing notes on top of it. So let me do that. So those notes are now overdubbed, and they're going in the opposite direction of everything else I recorded on the loop. But check out what happens if I restart the loop and then reset it to its original playback direction and pitch. So 3, 2, 1, and... So now that new layer is going backwards in relation to the previous layers. All right, now going back over to the keys, if I want to delete my loop, I press and hold both of the keys at the same time for 2 seconds. 1, 2, and now it's deleted. Okay, 2 more things to show you here. First of all, you might have noticed before that when I recorded the base layer of my loop, I had to really get in position and have my timing be perfect with pressing down the record button and playing the first chord that I played. Really, my timing probably wasn't perfect. And it can be a bit tricky to do. Well, that wasn't bad, but let's say I wanted to play a big chord with both of my hands. Unfortunately, I don't have a third hand, so I can't do what I just did before. But what I can do is this. So I'm going to delete that loop, and then I'm going to press and hold the play button, and then press the yellow key. Now the red light starts blinking, and that's to indicate that recording is now armed and ready, and the moment I press one or more keys, it's going to automatically start recording for me. And so now I can go back and play and record that big chord. Okay, and then the last feature to look at here is loop decay. So when we're overdubbing, loop decay essentially answers the question, what should the volume be of the previous material after each loop cycle? Let's play our loop. Go into overdub. So that's 1 cycle, 2 cycles, and so on. And right now, after each cycle, the volume continues to be 100%. But with loop decay, we can bring down the volume of each cycle in increments of 10%. And the way that we do that is by pressing and holding the Chompi key, and then pressing the key on the left of the looper will decrease the volume by 10%. Notice how the lights get a little bit dimmer, and then we can keep going down. And the lights get dimmer and dimmer. And then if we want to increase the volume, we press the key on the right, going up in increments of 10%, and the lights get brighter and brighter. So I'm going to bring this down 2 clicks and re-enter overdub. Check out how the loop starts to fade over time. So now it's much quieter, and if we kept going, it would eventually disappear. And so if you have some loop decay going on, you can do something called frippatronics, where your loop continually evolves over time because whatever you record starts to fade as it gets repeated, making way for new material that builds off or responds to the previous material in the looper. If at any point I decide I actually like what I recorded, I can exit overdub and the loop decay will stop. And I can always change the loop decay setting as my loop is playing, so hold down the Chompi key. Let's bring it all the way back up with the volume. So now I won't have any loop decay. Or I can bring it all the way down. And fade my loop away into silence and start playing something new. So lots of possibilities with that as well. And by the way, I'm doing very short loops here just for demonstration purposes, but you can loop for up to 2 minutes and 45 seconds, which is also the limit for recording samples. Right, and that does it for the looper. Now let's move over to the final knob. And just like all of our other knobs, it has multiple pages, just 2 in this case. Now we're on page 1, and if I press down, we're on page 2. Light goes red, and then if I press down again, we're back to page 1. On page 1, this controls our output gain, so clockwise will make everything louder, and counterclockwise will make it quieter. This is set to 75% by default. Page 2 controls our input gain. So I'm going to go back into Chompi mode, bring back the ukulele, and so clockwise will increase the input gain, and counterclockwise will decrease it. And this is also set to 75% by default. And if I hold down the Chompi key and then turn the knob, this is going to start bringing in some master compression. This is set to 0 by default, so the light is completely off at the moment. But if I bring it up by going clockwise, the light starts coming on. Now we have a little bit of master compression. And you can really crank this master compression all the way to max, where the light gets really bright. And get some really punchy, gnarly sounds this way. All right, and then there are 2 more things this knob does. If we press and hold the knob for 2 seconds, the light comes on to indicate our battery level. Let go, and the light goes away. All right, and then one much bigger feature is if we press and hold the Chompi key and then press down on the knob, and press again, and press again, we flip through 3 different input configuration options. So I'm back on the first input configuration right now. If I press and hold the Chompi key and press down the knob again, I go to the second configuration, which, well, you can hear it for yourself. Now, even though we're in Jammi mode, we are hearing the audio being monitored by the built-in microphone. And not only that, but the audio is being routed through the effects. And if I pick up this ukulele, I can apply the effects to the ukulele as well. And I can also directly record the sound onto the looper. So to do this nice and cleanly, I'm going to record a base layer of a loop inside of the first input configuration option, so we don't hear any of the external sound. And then I'm going to enter into overdub and switch to the second input configuration option. Enter overdub. And so you can use Chompi as both an effects unit and a looper for external instruments as well as external gear. If I plug a synth into the line in will automatically become the external audio source for audio into Chompi. And if I'm in the second input configuration option, I will hear the effects of Chompi be applied to my synth. Let's bring up the reverb even more. Add some tape warble. And I can record my synth to the looper. Go back to my ukulele sample. Slow down. Reverse it. Bring it back down to earth a bit. Overdub more stuff. Okay, now if I go over to the third routing option, so Chompi key down, press the knob down one more time. This routing option allows us to create effects loops with Chompi and external gear. Audio now goes out through Chompi's master out. It goes in to the external gear, and then the audio goes out of the pedal, and then into the line in of Chompi. And then when Chompi's audio gets sent out of the headphone jack, we'll hear the sound be affected by our external gear. Okay, the next thing to look at has to do with another series of shift functions. So we've already seen a number of shift functions where we press and hold the Chompi key and then do different things with the knobs or the keys on the top row of Chompi. But there's a whole nother set of things that we can do on the black keys as well. And just like the black keys come in groups of 2, 3, 2, and 3, so do the shift functions that we're going to look at here. So the first two are these two black keys on the left. You can see that one of them is lit, and if I press on the other one, the light moves over there, and then I can go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Now, what is this about? Well, if you remember way back to the beginning, I described the mode switch as toggling between a recording mode, Chompi Mode, and a playing/editing mode that is Jammi Mode by default. But there is a completely different play mode called Cubby Mode, and that's what these two black keys are about. When the key on the left is lit up, we're in Jammi Mode, and when we select the one on the right and that one's lit up, we are in Cubby Mode. So Jammi Mode, Cubby Mode, Jammi Mode, Cubby Mode. Now, what the heck is Cubby Mode? Well, Cubby Mode fundamentally changes how the keyboard works. The keyboard is no longer a chromatic keyboard. Instead, each one of the white keys has an entirely different sample mapped to it. And when we play a key, the sample gets played as a one-shot sample. So those are some of the presets that Chompi comes with. There's a mixture of rhythmic one-shot samples and also melodic one-shot samples. And although each key has a different sample mapped to it, you can play multiple keys at the same time and layer these one-shot samples on top of each other. Get some really cool musical collages going on that way. And then other than the difference in how the keyboard works, everything else is the same in Cubby Mode as in Jammi Mode. So for example, we could take this sample and speed it up or slow it down. Reverse it. Change up the sample window. But everything we just did with this sample doesn't affect any of the other samples. they're all independent of each other. And if I turn Chompi off and back on and go back over to cubby mode, well, you can hear that those setting changes are automatically saved to the sample, but we can always undo whatever we've done. Okay, so that is cubby mode. Let's go over to the next 3 set of black keys. So if I hold down the Chompi key, this controls our input source. The left key selects the built-in microphone, the middle key selects the line in jack, and the right key is for resampling, where we use Chompi's output as an input for recording samples. Okay, now the moment I plug into the line in, the light switches over to the line in option, since that's now the default input source, but we can change that manually if we want to the other options. And then if I leave it on line in and go back to Chompi mode, well, we can't hear anything in the microphone, but we can hear the synth, since that's what we're monitoring now. And if we hold down the Chompi key, we can record the synth directly through the line in. So same procedure as before. I press down on the Chompi key to start recording, and lift up to stop recording. Go back to Jammi mode, make some edits to it. For example, let's bring up the attack and the decay. Maybe bring down the decay. And as you can hear, we have some effects on. And something that's especially cool about this example is that the synthesizer I sampled is a monophonic synthesizer, but now that I've sampled it, I can play the sound of it polyphonically. Okay, so that was sampling a single note through the line in and then using it in Jammi mode, but we can also record longer samples through the line in and use them in cubby mode. So now I have this 4-track recorder connected to the line in, and I'm going to sample a demo of a song I was working on recently. So flip up into Chompi mode and get ready. Sample for up to 2 minutes and 45 seconds, so I can just keep going on and on with the song. Okay, and now the moment I let go of the Chompi key, our sample is living inside of the buffer memory, and if I play it on the keyboard right now in Chompi mode, or if I flip the mode switch down and play it there, it's going to play chromatically Jammi mode style, but the sample itself is mode agnostic. And if we want to play it in cubby mode instead of Jammi mode, well, all we need to do is switch over to cubby mode. So Chompi key down, select cubby mode, and remember our buffer memory lives in white key number 15, so it's right over here. And the nice thing about it living in the buffer memory here is that, as we're going to see later, we have 5 banks of samples in cubby mode and 5 separate ones in Jammi mode to work with. And since it's living over here in the 15th key, we can switch banks, for example, from this one, this is all rhythm presets, to the next one, which is instrumental presets. I can flip between the banks and experiment with combining my new sample with the ones I already have. And we're going to come back to the banks and how to select things later, but I just wanted to show you how this makes it really easy to start experimenting with different combinations. Okay, so that was the line in option. Now let's look at resampling. And for this, I'm going to go back to that ukulele sample. Flip up into Chompi mode. And now if I hold down the Chompi key, Chompi's going to record a sample of whatever Chompi itself is playing. So let's play something here. And then go back into Jammi mode. And now I have a sample of all of those notes And you might notice that the reverb and delay are now being doubled, and that's because if I turn off our effects and play our sample, the affected sound is now baked into the sample. So if I turn the effects back on, I'm now applying reverb and delay to a sound that already has reverb and delay inside of it. And the combination of that with multiple notes being played by each key at different speeds and pitches can be very magical. And I could record something like that into the looper. Go back into Chompi mode, and I could resample the looper playing while I play other stuff on top of it. And now if I take that resampled sample of another resampled sample and add a bunch of reverb and delay to it, which doesn't sound too shabby for something that literally just started with a single note of a ukulele. Okay, next thing to look at here is the next set of 2 black keys, and these control the effects position in relation to the looper. The left makes the effects go before, or pre-looper, and the right button makes the effects go after, or post-looper. So, pre-looper is the default setting. If I play our loop, it doesn't matter what I do with the effects knob because the effects come before the loop. But if I change the effects position to post looper, well, now if I play our loop and increase the effects, the loop sound gets sent to the effects, and so the effects do change the sound, which can sound especially nice when you slow down the loop. Okay, before we go over this final group of black keys and their shift functions, let's go back over to the first 2, because there's one thing we didn't cover in the previous level, which is that both within Jammi Mode and Chompi Mode, you have 5 memory banks of samples each to work with. And the way that you switch between them is by holding the Chompi key, selecting the mode that you want to be in. So I'm in Jammi Mode. Let's say I want to go to Chompi Mode. I press that. And then if I keep pressing the key for Chompi Mode, we switch to the other banks of presets. And you can see the colors changing to indicate which bank we're in. So this is bank 1. This is bank 2. Totally different sample in the first sample slot. Bank 3. And then bank 4 and bank 5 are empty and waiting for you to save your own samples to them. All these other samples, like, those are just presets. And then no matter which bank we're inside, like let's go to this one, the 15th white key is always where our buffer memory lives, which remember is whatever we recorded last in the sampler. If we record a new sample, or if we turn Chompi off, this buffer memory will get erased and lost forever unless we save it. But we'll come back to that in a moment. For now, let's go back over to Jammi Mode and look at that. So with Jammi Mode, it works the same way. We have 5 banks of presets, and we toggle between them by pressing down on the Jammi key while continuing to hold the Chompi key. So this is bank 1, bank 2, bank 3, bank 4, and bank 5. And just like with cubby mode, the first 3 banks come with presets included. That's why all of the keys are lit up in the first, second, and third banks. And then the 4th and 5th banks are empty, except I made some backup copies of samples I recorded earlier. Okay, now going back over to bank 1, the way that we select a preset in Jammi Mode is by continuing to hold down the Chompi key and then pressing the key where the sample lives. So if I want the sample in this slot, I press the key, and then if I let go of the Chompi key, that's now become my sample in Jammi Mode. And if I repeat that, so Chompi key down, and let's press sample number 5, for example. Now I have that sample, and if at any time I want to go back to my buffer memory, I press the Chompi key and then press the 15th white key, and we're right back to that sample. Okay, now let's look at saving, deleting, and copying samples. So we have this sample in our buffer memory, and let's say I want to save it. So to do that, I press and hold the Chompi key, and then press the final black key on the right, the one that has the blue light, press that down, and you can see that the keys start flashing. These are showing me all the possible places where I could save my sample. And now I can flick through the banks to choose the bank where I want to save the sample. So let's go to the final bank, and I can actually let go of the Chompi key. And now we just need to select the slot where we want to save the sample. So let's do 12, for example. Okay, if I change my mind, I can just press a different key, like 11, 10, whatever I want. And then you'll notice this flashing red light above the Chompi key. That's basically telling me that Chompi is waiting for me to confirm that 10 is indeed where I want to save the sample. And to confirm that and actually save the sample, all I need to do is press the Chompi key. The light will flash to indicate that it's saving. And when it's done, the sample is saved. So now if I hold down the Chompi key and select a different sample, and then go back to that bank where I saved the sample and select 10. There it is. Okay, so I'll do that one more time, this time quickly. Chompi key down, press the blue black key, select where I want to save the sample, and press the Chompi key to confirm. And now if I hold down the Chompi key, I can see that I have 2 versions of the sample in slots 9 and 10. All right, now let's say I want to delete the extra one. To delete a sample, the procedure is very similar. You press and hold the Chompi key, and then you press the delete key, which is the black key on the left with the red light. The lights on the keyboard then flash to show you what you can delete. I have samples in these slots, so those ones flash, but there's nothing in here, so there is no flashing. Then I select what I want to delete, so let's do 10. Chompi waits for me to confirm my selection, and to confirm it, I press the Chompi key. And there we go, it's now been deleted. And I actually have a backup of this sample already in slot 13, I think. So I can go ahead and delete the other one, Chompi key down, delete button, select number 9, press Chompi to confirm, and it's gone. Okay, last but certainly not least is something I actually think is one of the core features of this entire instrument, and that is the copy and paste function. All right, so this works in a pretty similar way. We press and hold the Chompi key, then we press the copy and paste key, which is the middle key that's lit green. Now we select what we want to copy. So just as an example, I'm going to select that sample in slot 13. Then we select where we want to copy it to. So I'm going to copy it over to slot number 10, for example. And then we press the Chompi key to confirm. And now if I select the 10th sample, we have a copy of the sample. Now that could be useful, but that's not the cool thing about this function. The cool thing is what I'm going to show you next. So let's say I go and record a new loop, and I'll use our last sample for this, and let's play it nice and slow with a bunch of reverb and delay. All right, so now I have my loop. What do I actually do with it? Well, if I press the Chompi key and I press copy and paste, all of the lights blinking right now are things that I can copy. And notice how that's not just the white keys on the keyboard, but also the looper, because we can copy and paste loops into any of the sample banks in either Jammi or cubby mode. So to select the loop as the thing we want to copy, we just press the blue play button of the looper. The light turns green to indicate that it's now copied and waiting for us in a sort of clipboard. And now the lights flash on the white keys on the keyboard to indicate where we can paste it to. And we can paste it anywhere we want. Right now we're inside Jammi Mode, but I think it would make more sense to save this in Cubby Mode. So I'm going to switch over to Cubby Mode and then find a bank where I want to save it. And then I select the memory slot where I want to paste it and save it. So let's just do 14. So I press that. The light above the Chompi key flashes to indicate it's waiting for us to confirm our selection, and we press the Chompi key to confirm. And then once the light is done blinking, our loop is now saved as a sample in sample slot 14. We can also copy and paste our loop or anything else we want to into the buffer memory. So Chompi key down, copy and paste key, press the play button on the looper. The loop is now copied. Select the buffer as our destination and press the Chompi key to confirm. And now it lives inside there as well. Now I can experiment with combining my sampled loop in the buffer memory with any other sample inside of Cubby Mode. Alright, that sounded nice. That could be the basis of a cool new loop. And here comes the other really cool thing. We can also do what we just did in reverse. I can take a sample, like this drum loop sample, and I can copy and paste that from the memory bank to the looper by just doing everything I just did in reverse. So Chompi key down, press copy and paste, select sample number 5 as the thing I want to copy. The light goes on the key to indicate it's been copied. Notice how the looper lights are flashing to indicate that that's a possible destination for where I can paste. Even though there's something already inside the looper, I can overwrite it. And to paste to the looper, I press the same key as before, the play button. So do that. Light turns blue to indicate that that step is complete. Red light flashes to ask for my confirmation, and I press the Chompi key to confirm. And now if I go over to my looper and press play, the sample is now inside there waiting for me to overdub on top of it. And this is really, really great and useful because a sample like this one, if you want it to work in a looping context, you usually want the beginning point and end point to match up seamlessly so you end up with a continuous beat or a continuous melody or whatever it is. And that can be really tricky to do if you have to loop manually, as anyone who's used a looper pedal may know. But thanks to this copy and paste feature, Chompi does it for us automatically, which makes it really, really easy to lay the foundation for a loop and then start building on top of it. It's really that easy, and I can immediately go from this to something completely different if I decide I'm sick of this. Like that guy, let's copy and paste that. Copy, paste, confirm. Find a sample in Jammi Mode we like. No. That'll do. And if I want to save that loop, press the Chompi key, copy and paste, select the loop, select a destination, press the Chompi key to confirm, and now I've saved my loop as a sample. Hopefully you can see the potential here. We can transfer samples and loops back and forth between the sample bank and the looper, make copies of them that we can experiment with and take in different directions. And then once you have a bunch of loops, you can start experimenting with putting them together in a collage, or you could just do that with the presets. We could start overdubbing that on top of our existing loop, and we don't have to worry about messing it up because we have a backup copy of the loop saved as a sample. The beautiful thing about Chompi is that nothing you do is permanent until you save it. If I hate what I just did, I can just delete it and start over again. Or if I turn Chompi off and on, both the buffer memory and the looper will be cleared. The flip side of which is if you do have something that you really like, be sure to save it. Okay, we're almost at the end here. For the final couple things to show you, I'm going to go back to our ukulele sample. And if I bring the endpoint of this sample back and make a real small sample window, notice how if I hold down the key, the sample reaches the end of its sample window and then it loops back and repeats from the beginning. Now, that may or may not be desirable, can be kind of a cool effect. You get these kind of cascading notes that tumble over each other, but it might also be something you don't want. And if you don't want it, well, it's very simple to turn it off. All you have to do is press and hold the Chompi key, and then press the knob that controls the starting point of the sample. Sample looping is now off, and if I press and hold a key, it only plays once. If I turn off the delay, you can really hear how it gets cut off. And so now I don't have to worry about how long I hold down the keys if I don't want that repeating. And if I want to turn it back on, I just do the same thing again. Press and hold the Chompi key, and then press the start point knob. And so we can toggle this off and on, off and on. All right, and then to show you the other thing we can do here, I'm going to select a preset, and I'm going to give it a little bit of decay. Okay, so right now, and by default, there's a setting on the sample called keyhold/sustain. And what this does is, as long as I hold down the key, the sample gets sustained. And then the moment I lift up, it starts to enter the decay phase of its envelope. So press down and hold to sustain, lift off, and we decay. However, we can turn that feature off, and the way we do that is by pressing and holding the Shift key, and then pressing down on the endpoint knob. The light will go off to indicate that keyhold/sustain is now off, and now, even if I press and hold the key, it's going to automatically decay. But if I want to turn keyhold back on, all I have to do is press the Chompi key and press the endpoint knob again. The light turns on, and now it's back on. And one last thing to note here is that these settings are sample specific. So if I turn keyhold off on this sample, and let's give it a really short decay, so now I've really transformed the sound. If I go and select a different preset, well, that sample has both looping and keyhold on, so if I want to change that, I have to change it on a per sample basis. But that's a good thing, because it means you can let different samples have different settings. Okay, so that does it for the core functions of Chompi and all the levels of the manual, but there are some more advanced functions to check out once you're ready. First of all, there's a configuration page on the Chompi website where if you follow the instructions on there, you can change a bunch of settings. You can make it so you don't have to hold down the Chompi key to record a sample, and instead, press the Chompi key down to record, let go, it will continue to record, it's now latched in place, and then you press it again to stop recording. This is especially useful if you're trying to sample something that requires you to use two hands. You can split the reverb and delay on the magic wand effect, so that going clockwise with the knob gives you reverb only, and going counterclockwise gives you delay only. You can also disable the tape sound you hear when you start and stop the loop. And then there are some other settings to check out, like the MIDI in and out channels. Speaking of which, that's another thing. You can connect to a MIDI keyboard and or controller, which can let you do things like have a bigger keyboard to play, use an arpeggiator, use a sequencer, and start and stop the looper with a press of your foot. I'll put the current MIDI charts on the screen. The numbers on the keys and knobs are CC numbers. And then finally, you can use the SD card to directly import and export samples, as well as update the firmware and configuration options. There are some specific steps and requirements involved with this, so do check out the final section of the manual under the title of Advanced Functions. Now, I know using an SD card to do things like firmware updates might not sound that exciting, but in this case, it actually is, because at the time that I'm recording this, there is a brand new alternative firmware on the horizon called Tempo, which is going to provide a radically different way of using Chompi. Instead of revolving around free-form tape-style looping, Tempo is going to be all about making patterns, and it's going to bring a whole bunch of new features to the table. Best of all, it's going to be free to download and easy to install, and it's also going to be easy to swap back and forth between firmwares. So definitely keep an eye out for that and any future updates. Anyway, that does it for me. Speaking of which, I never actually introduced myself. So, hi, my name is Daniel, and I run a music and gear education channel called Sonic Cartography. If you liked this video and my teaching style, you might want to check it out and subscribe. I'll definitely be doing more videos on Chompi over there. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them in the comments. Thanks for watching, have a great day, and I wish you all the best with your musical endeavors. Goodbye for now.